Introduction of Over Here and Over There. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by MaryAnn. Over Here and Over There, A Soldier's Thoughts of Home and War by Private Harry ZODY. Introductory. In publishing this book, I have no intention whatsoever to offer a work of great literary value. As such, it would undoubtedly be a failure, because, being of a non-English speaking race, and only having been in this country a comparatively short time before going over to France, I cannot claim a mastery of the English language. The incidents described in this book are all based upon actual facts, while the poetry was composed on the impulse of the moment. It has merely been my intention to express the spirit which led me to America, and thence, with Pershing's Expeditionary forces, to France. Not only American citizens of foreign birth, but also those who had the good fortune of being born and raised in this country, and who claim to have reached the highest standard of Americanism, should find inspiration and encouragement in these lines. If my humble efforts should be the means of creating one more 100% American, I would feel myself amply repaid, and in addition it would give me the satisfaction of knowing that I have once more been of service to my country and your country. Private Harry ZODY. End of Introductory. Section 1 of Over Here and Over There by Private Harry ZODY. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by MaryAnn. No nation can hold its place in the world, or can do any work really worth doing, unless it stands ready to guard its rights with an armed hand. That orderly liberty which is both the foundation and the capstone of our civilization can be gained and kept only by men who are willing to fight for an ideal, who hold high the love of honor, love of faith, love of flag, and love of country. Theodore Roosevelt. Reveille. To arms, ye sons of freedom, you've rested far too long. With just and righteous power go fight against the wrong. To arms, ye sons of freedom, our banner is unfurled. Our fathers freed a nation, but we must free the world. To arms, ye sons of freedom, to fight the man of hate. They need you, gallant soldiers, before it is too late. To arms, ye sons of freedom, ye freemen bold and brave. Uphold sweet freedom's banner, wherever it may wave. Lafayette, we are here. General John J. Pershing. Vive la France! With profoundest admiration I salute thee, gallant nation, war-torn, unafraid. Years of struggle and privation, wanton Prussian occupation, France is truly great. Thousands of your heroes dying, countless widows loudly crying, France will never yield. Calmly ruin and carnage facing, with a courage all embracing, on each battlefield. Once the home of songs and flowers, overrun by darkness's powers, trodden in the dust. But they feel that tears and sorrow may bring gladness on the morrow, and in God they trust. Dry your tears, the Yanks are arming, soon our soldiers will be swarming over to your aid. All our blood and all our treasure yours to have in fullest measure, till our debt is paid. Where man walks daily in the path of death, expecting to meet his Maker at any moment, his thoughts invariably turn for comfort to the Supreme Being. The scoffer and skeptic soon become a believer. Private Harry ZODY. God guide our boys. Among the flowers, where shells explode and souls corrode mid hellish powers, where death doth lure and men endure mad pain for hours. Among the flowers, the hum of bees has gone with peace, and none but showers of lead and steel. God, we appeal to thee for ours. Our country, in her intercourse with foreign nations, may she always be in the right, but our country, right or wrong. Stephen Decatur. To-Morrow. To-morrow we attack. Be careful, Bunky. This razor blade is awful dull. Don't scrape so hard, you'll mar my beauty. I want to look my best, old cull. Thanks, brother. Wish you luck. Maybe to-morrow I shall return the compliment. But, anyway, I look more like the fellow you've bunked with in that canvas tent. To-morrow we attack. I wonder, pardner, what folks at home are doing now. I see my mother busy with her supper, while Daddy milks the brindle cow. God bless her dear old face. She did not falter when duty called her son away. She looks just like this picture, always cheerful, though trouble often came to stay. To-morrow we attack. Let's say a prayer like those we learned on Mother's knee. We've got to beat old Fritz, and if he gets me, I'm proud to die for liberty. End of section 1. Section 2 of Over Here and Over There by Private Harry ZODY. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by MaryAnn. The day has come when America is privileged to spend her blood and her might for the principles that gave her birth and happiness and peace which she has treasured. God helping her, she can do no other. Woodrow Wilson. For our flag. There's a great many things that I never did like, such as drill in the rain or go out on a hike. And when on the march with that heavy full pack, I returned with a headache and pains in my back. I went to the doctor and complained of my pain, but it seems that C.C. pills are cheaper than rain. Say, isn't it funny what a man must go through for the flag he loves, the red, white, and blue? I was fat when I signed my full name on the roll, while right now it's a fact I'm as thin as a pole. But that's no wonder, for our comforts were few, and for weeks I ate nothing but thin army stew. Believe me, you never will know what it means till you try a full diet of hardtack and beans. Now, isn't it funny what a man can go through for the flag that he loves, the red, white, and blue? Came the day when they sent us to war-ridden France. The boat rocked like fury and we took a big chance. For many an hour we stood watching on deck, with a life-belt to hug and stick close to our neck. And yet we were happy and quite free from all care, in spite of this danger and the submarine scare. Say, isn't it funny what a man can go through for the flag that he loves, the red, white, and blue? Upon our arrival in the Parlez-vous land, our soldier boys sure had a job on their hand. Not a one in the bunch this queer lingo could speak. It sounded to them just like Latin or Greek. But they studied hard for the sake of America, and sure enough they could soon say, "Oh la la." Gosh, isn't it funny what a man learns to do for the flag that he loves, the red, white, and blue? Somewhere in Picardy, in some portion of trench, you can now see our boys side by side with the French. The French are delighted, our tobacco is fine, and our boys in exchange get a shot of their wine. E'en though things may look gloomy just once in a while, our principle is, let's win with a smile. And the whole world will see what a Yankee can do for the flag that he loves, the red, white, and blue. Khaki-clad boys over here and over there, remember, you are doing this for the liberty of the whole world. The man with a smile wins. Private Harry ZODY. My new profession. I'm no professional, I know, yet I do not mind hard drilling. At first I may be rather slow to learn the job of killing. At night my feet feel just like lead, my legs are sore and shaking. I think of Mother's nice soft bed for which my heart is aching. But not a whimper from this lad, though soldier life is bitter. I mean to show the Hun, by gad, a Yankee is no quitter. The stoutest heart wins in the end. Make all our hardships lighter. Where gentleness and courage blend, you'll find the bravest fighter. Belgium, the savior of civilization, small in size but immeasurably great in courage and honor, shall be restored. Private Harry ZODY. The greatest heroes of them all. In praising heroes of this war we need a magic lyre, and searching records wide and far, find plenty to admire. But heroism most sublime shown by our Belgian brothers is one example of all time. This one excels all others. When little Belgium had a chance to open wide her border, she still remained the friend of France, chose chaos and disorder. This glorious country had to fight a far superior power. Poor Belgium well knew Prussian might in that momentous hour. No one can fathom Belgium's fate, her pitiful condition, with Hunnish legions at her gate, demanding her submission. And yet, despite her shameful rape, she made this resolution: the Hun cannot, shall not escape a final retribution. Do not despair, O friend of ours, thou shalt perish never. Remember in life's darkest hours our help, our love forever. End of section 2. Section 3 of Over Here and Over There by Private Harry ZODY. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by MaryAnn. With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness for the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in. Abraham Lincoln. Our share. Right in the front-line trenches, bereft of love and care, our khaki lads are fighting, and each one does his share. They bear their cross with patience, a smile upon their face. They'd rather face death's horrors than foreign yoke's disgrace. While dreaming of God's country, they're fighting right in hell, and yet, when someone asks them, they say, "We're feeling well." No matter where you go to all along the battle line, you hear that cheerful story, "We're feeling mighty fine." They've had their share of shrapnel, of gas and liquid fire, yet they possess that spirit you can't help but admire. To Prussian will and power no Yank will ever bend, and, though the task is strenuous, they'll stick unto the end. We're bound to lick the Kaiser, as long as we are true to our immortal banner, the red and white and blue. It is not war that calls America into the arena of the world. It is peace. It is not conquest, but cooperation. Her interest lies in civilization, not chaos. Franklin McVeigh. We're in it. We stand for freedom, justice, right, with liberty our shining light, opposed to autocratic might forever. To lay for good this Prussian pest, which put our honor to the test, we surely have to give our best endeavor. We watched the conflict far away, impartially we held at bay those meddlers anxious for the fray, kept steady. But when the frightful Hun began to break all law of God and man, we had to change our peaceful plan, got ready. A savage, brutal to the core, a constant menace to our shore, is not the friend he was before. We're in it. God made us champion of the free, and naught can alter fate's decree of final Allied victory. We'll win it. Let us dare to do our duty as we understand it. Abraham Lincoln. The Call of Battle. Say, don't you hear that urgent call from far across the sea? Does it stir your Yankee blood, your love for liberty? Do you not feel within your heart a wish, strong and divine? Do you not want to be among the boys that fall in line? 'Tis not enough to sympathize with all the Yanks that give their precious blood in order that democracy may live. Let's stand behind our president with body, heart, and soul. Let's go right to it, and not quit till we have reached our goal. Let's rally round the flag we love, our dear red, white, and blue. Be worthy of the name Yanks, and show what Yanks can do. Say, when you see that banner float, do you not hold your breath, and fight as only Yanks can fight, and die a Yankee's death? The thought of our loved ones at home does not weaken us, but creates a grim determination to do or die. Private Harry ZODY. Somewhere in France. Somewhere in France I think of you. My thoughts in boundless flight speed over land and briny deep to meet my heart's delight. Somewhere in France I dream of you, though winter's icy blast chills to the bone and makes one glad when dawn arrives at last. Somewhere in France I write to you. My pen cannot describe all that I feel, for censors are a cold and heartless tribe. Somewhere in France your soldier boy will give the Boche his due, for freedom, justice, liberty, and, dearest girl, for you. End of section 3. Section 4 of Over Here and Over There by Private Harry ZODY. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by MaryAnn. It is necessary that the nation should have physical no less than moral courage, the capacity to do and dare and die at need, and that grim and steadfast resolution which alone will carry a great people through a great danger. Theodore Roosevelt. Lest we forget. I'm glad to say that I have found a friend with whom I'm warward bound. But don't forget, my soldier friend, the wondrous cause for which we stand. It's freedom, justice, liberty, the 3-in-1, democracy. Come, let's destroy the German plot with bayonet and with rifle shot. The stars and stripes may never stop till they are carried o'er the top. Before we go and fight, let's pray this flag no Yank will e'er betray. As long as we are brave and strong, the road to victory can't be long. As long as real Yanks we are, the road to Berlin can't be far. So let's go over hand in hand to fight or die in no man's land. And when you're on the firing line, may God's hand guide you, friend of mine. Two principles have stood face to face from the beginning of time and will ever continue to struggle. The one is the common right of humanity. The other is the divine right of kings. Abraham Lincoln. They shall not pass. In ancient times, as we all know, the Roman legions crossed the Rhine. They fought the savage Teuton foe, laid waste his sacred forest shrine. But Caesar's genius could not gain a victory over Gallic pride, and Roman valor tried in vain to conquer Gaul in mighty stride. They shall not pass while life remains. Brave men of Gaul die without fear. Our blood the plains and mountains stains, but liberty to us is dear. Near twice 1,000 years have gone, and now the Prussians' hordes advance. Sweep all before them, France alone, firm as a rock, meets lance with lance. They shall not pass, though millions die. Like Caesar, this blasphemous lord will ever hear our battle cry, till forced to sheathe his bloody sword. We're with you, sister, till we free the world from despots large and small. Allons enfants de la patrie, for Caesar shall not conquer Gaul. This is my ambition for America, that wherever an American citizen may go upon the earth, he will be honored and loved, because he represents a nation that has nothing but justice and kindness for all races of men. Charles Edward Jefferson. Think this over. Uncle Sam has joined the nations fighting for democracy, and he did so with one purpose, to throw down autocracy. Think, where are your pride and honor, citizens of the USA? We are here to do our duty in the right and only way. There's no sign, stop, look, and listen. Everyone has but one choice. For his own sake and old glories, answer to its sacred voice. Even though you're fond of reading, let the books lie on the shelf. Don't waste time in reading history. Go make history yourself. More than once in common prayer we devoutly bowed our heads. Since we can't get peace by praying, we shall fight for it, my lads. Just remember poor old Belgium. Think of brave and noble France. Britain stoutly bears her burden. Now it's ours to take a chance. God, give us men. A time like this demands strong minds, great hearts, true faith, and ready hands. Josiah Gilbert Holland. Our Army's Eye. Hark, that sound up in the sky, like machine-gun fire. Monster birds are darting by, climbing swiftly higher. See their sun-tipped, shining wings casting a fleeting shadow. Droningly the motor sings over brook and meadow. Watch the pilot, clad in gray, keen-eyed, eastward ever, guide his giant bird of prey, steady hand on lever. Day and night our army's eye braves a rain of fire. May the Infinite on high guard each daring flyer. End of section 4. Section 5 of Over Here and Over There by Private Harry ZODY. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by MaryAnn. A hot night. For the past few days our sector had been exceptionally quiet, save for an occasional reciprocal shelling. We were very proud to be the first Americans to be engaged in actual warfare with the Germans. We had become accustomed to our new quarters, which were really far from comfortable, and the sound of shells whistling through the air was no longer a novelty, but had become part of our routine, as it were. We were now experts in the art of dodging those shells, bearing our name and address, and it was great fun to watch those whiz-bangs explode nearby, throwing up geysers of mud and rocks. Sometimes I could not help comparing the front with a vaudeville show. The different acts followed each other promptly. One of the most interesting things for us to watch was the flight of aeroplanes, Allied as well as German, reconnoitering and trying to locate each other's artillery positions. As soon as one of these planes appeared over the enemy's lines, it was invariably received with a hot fire, which compelled it either to turn back or to ascend at great speed to such an altitude that the reconnoitering would be of practically no value. It was a clear day, and though spring was yet far away, the sky was spotlessly blue, and the sun was powerful enough to make us forget the severe cold which had chilled our bones for many weeks. Suddenly, during the early morning hours, we heard the distinct drone of motors, steadily increasing in sound. We rushed out of our dugouts, and there unfolded itself, away up in the sky, one of those by no means unusual, yet always intensely interesting spectacles. 5 German biplanes approached our lines at an altitude of approximately 6,000 feet, without being disturbed in the least by our anti-aircraft batteries, and proceeded to circle above our lines. They evidently did not have the courage to come lower, or to penetrate our lines any further than our front-line trenches. After keeping up this game for at least 15 minutes, and evidently thinking that our artillery considered it useless to waste shells on them, 2 of the planes suddenly made a nose-dive, descending to within a 500 feet level, and suddenly poured a rain of machine-gun bullets into our front trenches. In less than no time, all of our men who were not assigned to any particular outside duty disappeared into the dugouts. The Huns had copied this trick of the French aviators, who often went low over the German lines and created havoc with their machine guns. Except for a few rifle bullets fired by a sentry, these 2 planes made their escape without being disturbed. Then came the surprise. The overconfident Huns had failed to watch closely, and before they were aware of it, 3 French machines suddenly appeared on the scene and engaged 3 of the German planes, showering bullets upon them, bringing one crashing to the earth, where a few well-placed shells from our guns completed the work of destruction. 1 more German plane was seen to drop, but it succeeded in reaching the German lines. The other 3 made their escape, followed by a fierce anti-aircraft fire. Word reached us from headquarters to be prepared for an attack. Shortly after noon, the enemy artillery began to become very active, and shells of all calibers fell in front of our trenches, some of them into our trenches, and the men stationed in the rear also got their share. The gas alarm was sounded over the entire sector, as many of the projectiles were filled with poison gas. For more than 2 hours we were kept in suspense, unable to doff our gas masks for a single minute. Finally the bombardment ceased, and silence reigned once more. Only a few hundred yards behind us were the remains of what had once been a flourishing French village near the Lorraine border. Occasionally the silence was broken by the sad howl of a dog, which through all these weary months and years had not yet given up the search for his master, who was either dead or somewhere in the trenches, fighting for liberty. Soon darkness began to spread its ghostly wings over the picturesque landscape. A gray hill within the German lines in front of us began to melt away in the dusk, and finally disappeared altogether from our sight. With the appearance of the first star, life in our lines seemed to spring up. Patrols silently moved through the communicating trenches. Sentries took their posts. Our machine guns were brought into position, and our men received instructions from our officers as to what to do in case of danger. The nerve-wracking tension was almost unbearable, waiting for the unknown and the unseen. Suddenly the darkness was pierced by a considerable number of skyrockets of various colors sent up by the Germans, immediately followed by some of our powerful star shells, which threw a brilliant light over no man's land. At the very same moment a chorus of wild, inhuman voices was heard, intermingled with the explosion of hand grenades and the firing of rifles and pistols. From my observation post I had a clear view of the scene. One of our patrols, composed of 10 men, which had been inspecting the barbed wire entanglements in front of our position, suddenly found itself surrounded by a detachment of approximately 60 Germans. Our men bravely resisted, though greatly outnumbered, and refused to surrender. By the light of the increasing number of rockets I was able to observe how some of the Boches actually threw up their hands, shouting, "Kamerad, Kamerad," thus trying to simulate surrender. Our men, however, were wise to this trick, which had often been tried before. They preferred death to capture. One of our men succeeded in breaking through the encircling ring of enemies and reached our post, shouting that they were all dead. Thereupon our machine guns sent a barrage across no man's land, and those of the Germans who had not been killed or severely wounded retired at great speed. Less than 5 minutes after this encounter took place, about 20 of us volunteered to go and recover the wounded. After making 3 trips under a hail of German machine gun fire, we succeeded in bringing in 23 German dead, 8 severely wounded, whereas 6 of our men had been killed, 2 wounded, and 1 was missing. Here was one more proof that our men always give a good account of themselves. Another period of silence. It was close to midnight when the sky suddenly turned blood red. Then a series of loud explosions. At first I could not make out what this might be. It was such an impressive scene that, though it lasted but a few seconds, I stood absolutely motionless. However, I immediately realized the responsibilities connected with my observation post. Hell seemed to have broken loose, and I felt like one of the damned in Dante's Inferno. One of the most terrific bombardments I had ever been in ensued. When I was able to think the situation over, I realized that the Germans were sending over enormous quantities of poison gas in cylinders which were being fired from trench mortars in their front-line trenches. I estimated the speed of the wind at between 15 and 20 miles an hour. I tried and succeeded in keeping my nerves under control, and took the field telephone in order to turn in the alarm for the entire sector and the rear. I knew that I would not be able to use the telephone with my gas mask adjusted, and yet I realized that gas waves would reach my post in a few seconds. There was no time to hesitate. Through some unforeseen circumstance it took some time to get the right connection, but I succeeded in sending the gas alert through our lines. Meanwhile I got several whiffs of the gas, which caused a choking feeling in my throat. My eyes began to get heavy, and I had a feeling as if my head was made of lead. Yet I had to stick to my post. After hanging up the receiver, I tried to put on my gas mask for my own protection, but could not keep it on, owing to the strangling sensation in my throat. With death staring me in the face, I leaned my head in my hands. Amid the flames and smoke rising before me, I saw a vision of home, of love. Like a reel, my past life seemed to unroll before my eyes. With trembling hand I fumbled for the picture of the girl I left behind. And with a last fond glance upon those beloved features, I pressed my lips upon them. My eyes grew dim, and then darkness and oblivion. Private Harry ZODY. End of section 5. Section 6 of Over Here and Over There by Private Harry ZODY. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by MaryAnn. It is our firm belief that out of this awful conflict true civilization will rise, never to die again. Private Harry ZODY. Jerusalem redeemed. Turbaned Turks are beaten down, savage hordes no longer frown on our holy city. Christians bathed in blood and tears, Muslim yoke for years and years, they knew no pity. Palestine rejoicingly greets a new fraternity, hail our Christian brothers. And the gleaming cross is seen where the gentle Nazarene gave his life for others. Jew and Gentile filled with pride pray together, side by side, friends that naught can sever. Albion will not tolerate a return to Muslim fate, hallowed ground forever. Fear God and take your own part. Theodore Roosevelt. Joe Byle. Way down in old Kentucky there lived a boy, Joe Byle. Blessed with a sunshine nature, he always had a smile. He loved his mother dearly, stayed with her all the while. Yet when Old Glory called him, he answered with a smile. He drilled in rain or sunshine in perfect soldier style. He strictly did his duty, and did it with a smile. There was no better soldier in any rank or file. He fought with lion's courage, but never lost his smile. On France's blood-stained meadows they buried poor Joe Byle. He met his holy Maker, and met him with a smile. It is just and equitable to stand by Russia, if Russia wants us to. Lloyd George. Russia. Once our ally, now forgotten, sold by traitors, ill-begotten, anarchy their king. And we see the giant reeling, to the Prussian bully kneeling, just a helpless thing. Nearly half of Russia wrested by the Hun, and, though detested, rules with iron hand. Gone religion, law, and order. Bolshevism, hatred, murder, fill this fertile land. But a stable constitution shall emerge from revolution, dawn of liberty, while with blood and arson reeking, Russian patriots are seeking true democracy. So let's give her our assistance, lead the way to new resistance to Germanic greed. Teaching lessons we all cherish, holy Russia will not perish. Let's be friends in need. God grants liberty only to those who love it, and are always ready to guard and defend it. Daniel Webster. Memories. I'm sitting here absorbed in thoughts of happy days gone by, thoughts of a friend, a real friend. My God, it makes me cry to think it should have been thy will to tear us two apart. Yet though his body may be dear, his soul lives in my heart. We went to school together worked and played. We rode to church on Sunday, and side by side we prayed. Of what I had I gave him, whate'er he had was mine. Our friendship was a treasure, so genuine and divine. The war broke out. Like brothers we hastened to enlist, for when your country's calling, no good man can resist. Together we went over, it was a glorious sight. We had just one desire, to conquer come what might. Still in my heart I hear him shout, "Come, let's lick the Hun." Then suddenly he looked at me. He staggered, dropped his gun. And in the midst of battle I knelt beside my friend, and glanced into his breaking eyes which told the bitter end. His last words were, "Come, never mind, just leave me where I am, and tell the folks across the sea I died for Uncle Sam." We could not even bury him, but in a lonesome trench there lies a man who gave his life for freedom of the French. I left him there, my soldier friend, in his eternal rest, and I went back to no man's land, and stood the fire test. The world seems dark and dreary since this brave soldier went. America, both you and I have lost a real friend. End of section 6. Section 7 of Over Here and Over There by Private Harry ZODY. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by MaryAnn. Poison gas exemplifies the German conception of culture. Private Harry ZODY. Gas. Greenish vapors, dense and low, killing grass and flowers. Right and left where'er you go, poison gas for hours. Satan's own, I know your kind. Fumes from hell come floating through the night to make men blind, while the Hun is gloating. Quick the mask, perhaps too late, ere the poison touches living breath and seals your fate with its hellish clutches. Hands at throat you try to see, all your senses reeling, choking, gasping to be free from this awful feeling. Consciousness is gone at last, but the pain of waking, all the agonies of the past tenfold in the making. I am thankful that I live here to tell the story. God will lend me strength to give blows for dear old glory. To consider sacrifice for your country a privilege is the true test of patriotism. Private Harry ZODY. My pals. I have always been a wanderer, and I've led an aimless life. I felt lonesome and forgotten, knowing neither love nor strife. But God in his endless mercy gave to me at last a pal, and the world held none but sunshine ever since I met my gal. Then I felt no longer lonesome. I thought love life's greatest call, and thanked my Lord in heaven I was happy after all. Came the day when my old glory was endangered by the Hun, and I rallied round the colors with another pal, my gun. For that grand and glorious banner stands for all that's good and right, as I heard its sweet voice whisper, "If you love me, go and fight." Far away on France's meadows I gave answer to that call, and I thanked my Lord in heaven I was happy after all. Let our object be our country, our whole country, and nothing but our country. Daniel Webster. Just plain Americans. Honor in plenty and unstinted praise for our soldier heroes leaves me in a maze, sets me a-thinking what's all this about, why all this fuss, and pray why do you shout? We do our duty, of course, and what's more, thousands of others have done it before. Sons of democracy, ready to save our dear America, home of the brave. Millions of fighting men answer the call, gladly they go, and no heroes at all. Dying if need be, for we cannot give any too much to let liberty live. This is my pride, to be one of the men privileged to put Kaiser Bill in the pen. Sure, the boys laugh when I tell 'em about your hero talk and the way people shout. A true patriot knows when the love of country should be stronger than the love he bears his mother. A true mother willingly offers her son on the altar of freedom. Private Harry ZODY. Mother. Oh God, how much I love her. Just like the stars above her, her eyes shine with sparkling light. Her well-shaped hands are blending white. She is more a vision than a sight, just like the stars above her. Oh God, how much I love her. Just like the skies above her, her eyes are wonderfully blue. And once those eyes have looked at you, you love them always and anew, just like the skies above her. Oh God, how much I love her. Just like the sun above her, her hair in glorious bright array without the slightest touch of gray, as lovely as the month of May, just like the sun above her. Oh God, how much I love her. There's nothing else above her could match her cheeks so soft and red, from which the youth has never fled. They prove the happy life she led, with faithful sons to love her. Her cheeks, her hands, her eyes so true, sure match the red, white, and blue, that flag above all others. The stars and stripes will never cease to have my love in war and peace. The rest of it is mother's. End of section 7. Section 8 of Over Here and Over There by Private Harry ZODY. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by MaryAnn. The right is more precious than peace, and we shall fight for the things which we have always carried nearest our hearts. Woodrow Wilson. Our Devil Hound Marines. You folks may praise our army, no better in all France. The infantry is dandy, they always take a chance. Our gunners know their business of handling 75s. When they let loose, the Huns all hide, a-scared of their lives. But don't forget those fighters, our soldiers of the sea. That chosen corps is first to fight, they face a scrap with glee. A hungry bunch, they never miss their meal of pork and beans. They're few, but full of ginger, our devil-hound Marines. Clear out the woods, was the command, with gun and bayonet. The Boche dislikes those soldiers, they gave them hell, you bet. And he hollered, Camarade, we all know what that means. There is no use to fight against American Marines. Perhaps we do not give enough credit to the steadfast courage of our women who bear the burden of watchful and, alas, oft-times mournful waiting. Private Harry ZODY. Her picture. In training camp, in front-line trenches, where Yankee soldiers do their part, to bring me luck, give me more courage, I wore her picture near my heart. It helped me bear the ocean voyage, though very sick with mal de mer, and what I ate went to the fishes, my stomach did not get its share. One night in France we went patrolling, to hunt the Boche across the way. With scarce a sound we reached his trenches, but all at once there's hell to pay. A rocket flares, we are discovered, machine guns bark, to beat the band, and here I was with my girl's picture, caught in barrage in no man's land. And while I lay there scarcely moving, and slowly crawling, yard by yard, I bade good-bye to her dear features, and pressed her picture to my heart. But when this awful war is ended, when for the dear old States I start, I know that I shall find her waiting for me to press her to my heart. Bereaved mothers who may wait in vain should be comforted by the thought that their sons laid down their lives for freedom and lasting civilization. Private Harry ZODY. My boy came back. It was but yesterday I prayed, O God, keep safe my darling boy. Preserve his courage, undismayed, through mother love without alloy. In Picardy, on Flanders fields, he'll do his duty, that I know, and not an inch to Hun he yields, until he gives him blow for blow. Such was my dream of yesterday, and ever since he left my shore, I saw him in the thick of fray, mid poison gas and cannon's roar. God hear my prayer, my boy is here, my soldier hero ne'er to part, forgotten anguish, hope and fear, and peace reigns in a mother's heart. It pays to be cheerful. Just practice smiling and the greatest hardships will be like play. Let's all pull together and prepare for that grandest smile of all, the smile of victory. Private Harry ZODY. The smile victorious. Come on, my boys, keep that smile on your face. Don't lose it, whatever you do. You cannot smile any more when you're dead. Life is so short, ain't that true? Bear in mind, fellows, where'er you go without grumbling or guile. The only man that is liked nowadays is the man with a song and a smile. Maybe you're here, or perhaps over there, to fight the unspeakable Hun. God knows it's hard, but all you should know that Yankees think fighting is fun. Remember, my lads, there is someone at home wants a letter just once a while. Whatever you write, though times may be tough, just send them your love and a smile. That government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. Abraham Lincoln. Taps. Bugler, blow softly the signal our comrades so often enjoyed. Here lies our brother in arms, ne'er to rise again. Over his flower-decked grave we mourn for a young life destroyed. Brave to the last, yet we know he did not die in vain. End of section 8. Section 9 of Over Here and Over There by Private Harry ZODY. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by MaryAnn. How I Became a 100% American. I was born in Amsterdam, Holland, on September 9th, 1894. At a very early age I showed a great love for books telling of strange lands, and particularly those describing America, the land of opportunity. I began to dream of America, of its wonders, and longed to see my dream realized. I bought and borrowed dozens of Wild West stories. I looked with awe upon pictures illustrating New York, with its tall buildings that seemed to reach the very sky, the majestic Hudson, the wonderful harbor, and the beehive industries of the metropolis. I often told my mother about my ambition to see all these wonders. She tried to discourage me and told me that I could find plenty of happiness and contentment at home, secure in the love and care of my parents. My father, a practical business man, did not take any stock in a boy's romantic visions. He had mapped out for me a business career and felt that I should follow his ripe judgment in these matters. After a 3-year course at college, my father decided to send me to Germany to what he considered the most efficient business education. I did not like my stay in the land ruled by the Potsdam gang, for I had strongly developed democratic ideas and ideals, and for that reason I could never feel at home among people who worshipped a God-given ruler, and where a brass button was the ultimate expression of power. I was more than glad when after 3 years of torture I could again behold the dikes and windmills of Holland, my native country. Upon my return home I entered my father's factory in order to become fully acquainted with all details of the enterprise. After this I spent a little less than 12 months in England, where my father had a buying agency, but here also I could not feel at home. There seemed to be a consuming fever within me which I could not explain at the time, a longing for something altogether different, a burning desire to be among red-blooded people that would grasp my hand and say, "Come on, be one of us." Thus, much to my father's consternation, I once more appeared in the ancestral home and told him that I had failed to find the realization of my dreams and ambitions. We had quite an argument on the subject, but failed to come to an understanding, as he could not appreciate my longing for freedom and fraternity. In the month of June 1914, the month in which the heir to Austria's throne was assassinated, the clouds that had long threatened to disturb the peace of Europe burst, and then ensued the conflict destined to embroil almost the entire world. Came a period of hysteria. Austria's ultimatum to Serbia was promptly followed by Russia's mobilization, for she was bound to protect her weaker Slav brother. This was followed by Germany's declaration of war, and, as if by magic, Europe was aflame. Then occurred the greatest crime in history, the invasion of Belgium. This wonderful nation refused to bow to might and did its best to stem the tide. Valiantly those brave Belgians fought against terrible odds, assisted by a small English volunteer force, for England had declared war on Germany immediately upon the violation of Belgium's integrity. Holland found itself in the maelstrom of the conflict, yet, following the example of her southern neighbor, pronounced her rights as an independent neutral nation, and proceeded to mobilize all her available forces for the protection of her borders. Thousands upon thousands of poor, homeless Belgian refugees crowded our land, and I, as a member of one of the improvised committees for Belgian relief, came into close contact with the first victims of German barbarism. I clearly saw that a great wrong had been inflicted on an innocent people, and vowed that at some future time I would do my share to avenge this wrong. My venturesome spirit led me into war-stricken Belgium, where I had an opportunity to observe at first hand the result of German culture, industrially applied with the sword and the torch. I was in Antwerp during the bombardment in October 1914, and the morning after the German occupation of the city, while walking around making notes that I intended to use for publication in Holland, I was arrested by German patrol and locked up in one of the cellars of the Hotel Weber, where the German High Command had established its headquarters. I knew that I was suspected of being a spy. For over 5 hours I was kept incommunicado, without light, food, or drink, and I almost suffocated through the lack of fresh air. To my great relief, I at last heard a key grate in the lock. A rough-looking Bavarian ordered me gruffly to follow him to the commanding officer. This fellow began by accusing me, first in English, then in French, of being a spy. His language was picturesque, to say the least, and freely intermingled with curses and vile epithets. When I feigned ignorance of these languages and failed to answer, he pounded his heavy fist on the table and, lapsing into his native German, asked me, "What? Zum Donnerwetter, do you understand?" This outburst made me smile. Pulling out my cigarette case, I offered it to him and begged him, in fluent German, to taste a cigarette made in England. With a most stupid, astonished look on his coarse features, he accepted my offer and said, "Ah, so you speak German?" I smilingly assured him of my complete mastery of his language, and told him that he could have saved himself much trouble and aggravation by starting the conversation in German. Furthermore, I produced a duly attested passport, showing my standing as a subject of a neutral nation. He virtually tore the paper from my hand and scowlingly perused it. Finally, convinced of my identity, his mood changed, and he hastened to apologize for the rough treatment I had undergone. To my great amusement, he began to bow so deeply that he almost dipped his nose into a large inkstand on the table. His visé of my passport gave me full liberty to visit all parts of occupied Belgium, and after availing myself of this privilege to the greatest extent possible, I returned home. Before many days had passed, my desire for a better land and a greater future assumed such proportions that I bluntly told my father and mother I was going to try my luck in America. Despite tears and protestations, I carried my point, and leaving the scenes of my childhood without much regret, I set sail for the land of my destiny. Words fail me when I try to describe my emotions at first beholding that wonderful symbol adorning New York Harbor, the Statue of Liberty. For hours I had stood on deck, watching and waiting for a first glimpse of the shores of America. My emotions were many and varied. I felt as if reborn, and from the very moment I stepped ashore, I felt no longer a foreigner, but one of Uncle Sam's, an American. In one way I was disappointed. I had read so much about the Indians, and at least I expected to find myself surrounded by these wild hordes. A fellow traveler directed me to a modest downtown hotel. Another shock awaited me when I emerged from the subway. I suddenly found myself at the foot of one of New York's highest skyscrapers. Hurriedly dropping my suitcase to the sidewalk, I started to count the stories of this wonderful building. Somehow it took me fully 30 minutes to accomplish this feat. For every time I had reached a certain height, some hurried passer-by, everybody seemed to be in a hurry, would jostle me so hard that I lost count and had to start all over again. Almost dizzy with excitement and wonder, I finally reached my hotel, and locked up in my room, burst into tears, for it was then that I first began to realize that I was all alone in this vast country. In retrospect, I cannot help comparing my arrival in this country with my present standing. Now, after having shown my sincere desire to become one of Uncle Sam's own, I am respected, honored, and backed up by a nation of more than 100 million individuals. Surely I have every reason to feel happy and to be proud and satisfied. After roaming around aimlessly for about 6 months, the memorable day arrived when I found a real opportunity to demonstrate my inborn Americanism. After showing the utmost patience in the face of repeated insults and broken pledges, my newly adopted country finally found itself compelled to declare war on Kaiserism. The sight of the most beautiful flag ever displayed to the breeze, the sound of that wonderful anthem, praising the land of the free and the home of the brave, stirred my heart to its greatest depth, and it was right there and then that I clearly saw before me the one and only way to become 100% American. I enlisted in the United States Army as a volunteer, and from the very bottom of my soul came these beautiful words: I pledge allegiance to my flag and to the country for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I soon felt the wonderfully stimulating and invigorating effect of military training. My stature became more erect, I developed a splendid appetite, and both my complexion and my weight improved considerably. I was very proud of my uniform, always trying to live up to the great and honorable part which American soldiers were expected to play in this great crisis. While on furlough in New York, during one of the Liberty Loan campaigns, I applied to the Liberty Loan Committee for permission to assist in the sale of bonds. They asked me if I had any experience as a public speaker, and, to my sorrow, I had to give a negative reply. However, the chairman took an interest in me, and, deciding that he could take a chance with a man wearing the American uniform, assigned me as speaker to a meeting where Governor Whitman, Mrs. McAdoo, wife of the Secretary of the Treasury, Sergeant Guy Empry, and other distinguished visitors were present. Shortly after receiving my baptism as a public speaker, I stood in front of the Liberty Bank in Madison Square, where a vast crowd had gathered. As much as my limited knowledge of the English language would permit, I pointed out the enormous sacrifices which were to be made by the millions of brave boys our country expected to send over to France. I was completely carried away by my own speech, for it was not only my mouth that spoke, but my heart and soul too. I told the people that within a few days I expected to go across myself, assuring them that I considered it a privilege and not a sacrifice to offer my life so that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. Although I was not a polished orator, I had the audience spellbound from beginning to end, because they could clearly see that I spoke with conviction. Then I came to the point where I told them that if I were called up to go over the top, I would gladly go, and if I did not come back, no one would mourn over me. Here I referred to the fact that I was an utter stranger in America. In making my final appeal for subscriptions, my eyes were suddenly arrested and held by those of a beautiful young girl. In those eyes I saw a reflection of my own patriotism. I felt sure that I had her sufficiently interested to be able to sell her a bond, in which I succeeded. Of course, I had no idea at the time that this liberty bond would lead to a marriage bond, but so it proved in the end. The third time I met her we were engaged, and a few days later I sailed for France. While I am proud of the honor bestowed upon me by General Pershing, the honor of being one of 50 men selected from more than 1 million to represent the army of democracy in its plea for effective backing, I wish to say that I do not see where I deserve this privilege any more than my comrades. I have done but my duty as a man, and as a soldier I have gladly fought for a cause that is just. To the above synopsis of my life, I feel inclined to add that since my return to America from the battlefields of France, I have crowned my efforts to become a regular American by marrying a thoroughbred American girl, the girl who bought a Liberty Bond of me at Madison Square, a perfect specimen of our glorious American womanhood. Private Harry ZODY. End of section 9. Section 10 of Over Here and Over There by Private Harry ZODY. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by MaryAnn. A Prayer. God bless the one and only flag which I so deeply love. I feel as if those stars and stripes were sent me from above. God bless the one and only flag. Its wonderful array has given me new life, new hope, yea, all I have today. God bless the one and only flag that I have ever had to love, to guard, and to defend. Oh, I'm so proud, so glad. God bless the one and only flag, the red and white and blue. To keep it e'er without a stain is up to me and you. End of section 10 and end of Over Here and Over There by Private Harry ZODY. Recorded by MaryAnn Spiegel in Elmhurst, Illinois, July 2020. Thank you for listening.